It's D-U-E-U tell. I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah. D-U-E-U.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Today we're going to take a look at the Baltimore Ravens and preview their upcoming season. But before we get started, let's take a look at some of the key storylines heading into the season as we go into our 4-minute offense. Longtime Baltimore Ravens guard Marshall Yanda decided to hang up his cleats after what figures to be a Hall of Fame career. He played 13 seasons in the NFL, all with the Ravens, and he was a third-round pick out of Iowa in the 2007 draft and went on to start 12 games as a rookie and 166 in total. Yanda was named to the Pro Bowl 8 times in his career, twice being named first-team All-Pro. It was only fitting that he ended his career named to both teams and helped pave the way for one of the most explosive offenses in league history. Along with the great legacy, he also leaves behind a gaping hole on the right side for the Ravens as they enter the 2020 season. In the 2020 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens made it a point to continue to get better offensively, not resting on their laurels from last season. Adding explosive talent around the reigning MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson just continues to help foster his growth and development while also keeping the offense more dangerous moving forward. The Ravens added former Ohio State tailback J.K. Dobbins and wide receiver Devin Duvernay from Texas and James Prochet from SMU. All three players are known for their explosiveness and their ability to change the game anytime they touch the ball. It should be exciting to see how they get integrated into this dynamic offensive attack this season. Baltimore was also very busy in free agency as well, finding ways to further strengthen the defense that finished 4th in the league in total defense. The front seven was the major focus as they traded with the Jacksonville Jaguars for defensive end Calais Campbell and signed Derek Wolfe from the Denver Broncos in free agency. Both players are ideal fits for the Ravens' gap control defense in my opinion, as they can not only occupy but also collapse in pressure. In the first round of the draft, the Ravens went ahead and selected linebacker Patrick Queen from LSU. His selection, along with Malik Harrison out of Ohio State, signified that they weren't content with the productivity from the inside backers last season and doubled down with good, young, athletic talent to help keep their defense both strong and versatile. All of the moves made this offseason were focused efforts to get this team to make an even deeper run in the playoffs. Their last 2 playoff appearances have been quick exits. Last season was probably the most heartbreaking one, as the Ravens looked like a team that was going to steamroll its way to the Super Bowl, only to get tripped up or dominated, quite honestly, by the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round. There was no one particular part that you could blame. It was just a complete team effort in that loss. The hope is that with the bad memory of that game still fresh in the minds of the players and revamping certain elements of the personnel, it'll help Baltimore have enough gas in the tank to make it all the way to Tampa Bay by season's end. To say last year was a great year for Lamar Jackson would be underselling it just a bit, when in fact, what he did last season was the definition of transcendent. Jackson led the league in touchdown passes with 36, only threw 6 interceptions, completed 66% of his passes, which was an 8% jump over his rookie season, and he finished with a 113 passer rating, which was 29 points higher than last season. Oh, the icing on the proverbial cake was his 1,209 yards rushing at a league-leading 6.9 yards a carry with 7 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson poetically slaughtered all of the pre-draft pundits and rookie season naysayers with one of the best quarterbacking seasons in NFL history. It won't end the talk coming from the naysayers, as they'll find a new angle to hate on the 22-year-old quarterback this season. In fact, they already started that last year as the season ended in the playoffs against the Titans, saying idiotic things like, well, what he did was fine, but can he win in the playoffs? The goalposts will forever move for Jackson and the quarterbacks who look like Jackson, but rest assured, what they can't take away from him is that he is the Ravens quarterback now, and for the future. The franchise is in good hands with number 8. It's also in good shape from a depth perspective as RG3 continues to provide good depth and mentorship as their QB2. Look for it to be an interesting training camp as well, as there will be a potential battle for that QB3 role between second-year player Trace McSorley and undrafted rookie free agent Tyler Huntley out of Utah, who was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football last season. The Ravens' run game was one of the best in the NFL. Yes, having a Lamar Jackson at quarterback does make the run game infinitely better, but in his first season as a Raven, Mark Ingram ran for over 1,000 yards and reserve Gus Edwards ran for over 700 yards. Both had a strong yards per carry average with 5 and 5.3 respectively, and the backfield figures to have more juice this season with the addition of J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. He enjoyed his best season last year with the Buckeyes, running for over 2,000 yards at 6.7 yards a carry and 21 rushing touchdowns. He gives the Ravens an explosive back who is also solid in the passing game. Second-year tailback Justice Hill started to get the hang of the pro game toward the back end of the season and figures to carve out a role this upcoming year within his rotation. And fullback/defensive lineman Pat Ricard does an excellent job playing both ways, number 1, but also issuing out devastating blocks, helping spring big gains by Raven backs. While the receiving core showed some improvement last year with the rookie talent that they added in Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin, they still have room to grow and get better. Brown finished second on the team in receiving, scoring 7 touchdowns in the process. The hope is that he can go into a full offseason healthy and ready to build on his rookie campaign. The biggest jump is expected for Boykin, who scored 3 touchdowns but only finished with 13 receptions for 198 yards. The team is looking for him to solidify them on the outside, giving guys like Brown and both explosive rookies, Devin Duvernay out of Texas and James Prochet, an opportunity to do damage underneath. Steady veteran Willie Snead still factors into the mix, but he, along with Chris Moore, will be hard-pressed to keep those 2 explosive rookies from snacking into their minutes. I'm also interested to see what Jaleel Scott can do this season, as a former 6'5", 4th-round pick figures to work himself into the rotation on the outside. Their passing game, though, is run through their tight end position. If we're being honest, Mark Andrews, entering his 3rd season, has already put himself in the conversation of the league's top tight ends. He's led this team in catches, yards, and touchdowns last season and is a big matchup problem in the passing game. Nick Boyle gives them a strong number 2 tight end who also excels in blocking. Boyle saw his role increase a bit last year and was more than ready to oblige. Now gone is Hayden Hurst, which leaves the door open for a 3rd tight end to emerge, and that guy will be Charles Scarf, the second-year player from Delaware. I'm a big fan of his game, as he's very similar to Mark Andrews, a good inline blocker that does a solid job in running routes and also catching the ball. So look for him to be one of those training camp surprises this summer. Baltimore has 2 of the league's best bookends at tackle in Ronnie Stanley and Orlando Brown. Both are Pro Bowl players who excel on both ends of offense. What's good is that they are young and ascending players who should only get better. The team signed former 1st-round pick Andre Smith late last season, and he gives them stability as a depth swing tackle to both sides. Bradley Bozeman is another stalwart up front at guard. He was a 6th-round pick in 2018 and acclimated himself well last year as a first-year starter inside, starting every game for Baltimore, helping pave the way for a strong run game. Now, Matt Skura will be coming off of an ACL injury that he suffered late last season against the Rams, and he figures to be back as the starting center for the season. Now, if they decide to slowly work him back to 100%, I will keep an eye out for undrafted rookie free agent Tristan Colon Castillo out of Missouri to be in play to see some time with the ones during camp. He was one of the better center prospects in this year's draft class. Now, Skura's return from injury, along with the retiring of Marshall Yanda, does cast some questions along the interior for the Ravens. The hope is that Ben Powers, who they drafted last season, can compete and win that job outright, or he will face stiff competition from a couple of rookies in Ben Bredesen out of Michigan and Tyree Phillips out of Mississippi State. If neither can stand out or separate themselves, the Ravens also added DJ Fluker as good insurance. At worst, he provides good depth for them on the interior. Eight-year veteran Brandon Williams is the lone returning starter along the defensive line for the Ravens. He does so much at the point of attack, making himself one of the best nose tackles in the game. And rather than deal with expectations for rookies alongside of him, the Ravens added 2 strong veterans in Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe up front. Despite entering his 13th season in the NFL, Campbell is still a very good player, coming off of a 6.5 sack, 10 TFL season, earning Pro Bowl honors for the 5th time in his career. Wolf posted his highest sack total last year, which was 7 in his career, and he's averaged around 4.5 sacks per season, also proving to be solid against the run as well. And having those two veterans join the fray was huge, but what was also a big deal was the inspired play that they got from 2 midseason acquisitions in Jihad Ward and Justin Ellis. Both guys were cast-offs from other teams and ended up making a big impact with Baltimore, and now both players figured to be heavy in the rotation this upcoming season. It also allows the Ravens to bring rookies Justin Madubuike and Broderick Washington, as well as second-year player Dalen Mack, along slowly and not have to worry about thrusting them into an increased role early on. Outside linebacker is a strength for the Ravens in my opinion, especially after getting Matt Judon back on the franchise tag. He's one of the up-and-coming pass rushers in the game and led the team in sacks last year with 9.5. Obviously, he wants a longer-term commitment from the Ravens, and I figure that eventually they'll get things done. And the return of Pernell McPhee last year was a good one. He suffered an injury late last season, but figures to be 100% ready to go for training camp. He, along with Tyus Bowser, who came on strong last season, helped strengthen the group overall. So does the expected growth of second-year player Jalen Ferguson out of Louisiana Tech. As the season went on, he started to become more of a disruptive player. He ended up with 9 starts on the season and finished with 2.5 sacks, 6 TFLs, and 20 solo tackles. So look for him to be a breakout candidate this upcoming year. Where Baltimore wanted to get better was at inside linebacker. That's why they spent 2 draft picks on Patrick Queen out of LSU and Malik Harrison out of Ohio State. Both could end up starting this season. Queen has the athleticism to cover out there in space, while Harrison is very strong versus the run, but also has very good football IQ and takes great angles to the football. Both players, along with LJ Fort, who came in mid-season last year, was solid. They should help strengthen this group, making it a much stronger group in 2020. One of the strengths of the Ravens is the secondary. Baltimore boasts tremendous talent on the corners. Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters form a hell of a duo, combining press skills as well as ball skills, making it very tough to complete passes against them each and every week. Veteran Jimmy Smith gives them another solid press corner who can still cover man-to-man and entering his 10th season in the league. Getting back Tavon Young helps solidify their slot position. You just hope that Young can stay healthy, because when he's out there on the field, he makes plays. He has missed 2 full seasons so far in his career. Anthony Everett and second-year player Iman Marshall figure to compete for that 4th corner spot, and that will probably be the biggest camp battle this summer to keep an eye on. Earl Thomas's first year in Baltimore was a huge success. The 11-year vet made the Pro Bowl last season after picking off 2 passes and breaking up another 4. He doesn't look like he lost a step at all, showing that range that made him one of the league's best in Seattle for all those years. Now he pairs up with Chuck Clark, who was excellent in his first time as a full-time starter. He broke up 9 passes last year and had 45 solo stops. But getting Deshaun Elliott back is going to help strengthen the depth on the back end. But look for rookie Geno Stone out of Iowa to factor into the mix somehow. He has solid spatial awareness and could be used as a third safety, but will more than likely make his hay on special teams initially. I look at 2 Buckeyes having a huge impact as rookies, starting with J.K. Dobbins, who to me reminds me a lot of Mark Ingram, just a more explosive version with a little bit more wiggle that can come out of the backfield as well. So I think he should thrive early on in this offense. And when you look at Malik Harrison, the inside linebacker, he reminds me a lot of LJ Fort, just a solid inside backer that's good versus the run. We talked about how well he takes those angles to the football, but has good solid awareness. I think he was an underrated player coming out of the draft class. Look for rookie guard Ben Bredeson to be a camp surprise, because people will look at him and wonder how he fell that far in the draft. He is one of the top guards to come out of this draft class, and I think the Ravens got themselves a steal. Could compete early for a starting job. When we look at John Daka, the undrafted free agent out of James Madison, always into something is what I like to describe him as. He was a very disruptive player for James Madison, couldn't be blocked coming off that edge, and should find a way to work himself in the mix for that second level of Baltimore. I think the biggest X factor will be those two rookie receivers in Devin Duvernay out of Texas and James Prochet out of SMU. The Ravens doubled down on that position for a reason. Both of those guys are explosive and dangerous with the ball in their hands. They're catch and run guys that can be moved all around the formation. So I think they have a chance to be huge as rookies, but make a big time impact within this offense. And Tavon Young returning to the lineup is going to be huge. He's a slot corner that has the toughness, the physicality that you want at the position, and the playmaking ability. If he can stay out there for a full 16-game season, it just helps strengthen that secondary as a whole. Miles Boykin is a tremendous talent, and I do believe everything is aligning for him to be a breakout player offensively in year 2. This is a guy that has the height, he has the speed, he knows how to go up and attack the football. He wants to be good, and I think all of those things will have him have his best season so far in his young career. Defensively, Jalen Ferguson, like I talked about earlier, started to put it together as the season went on, so look for him to be a breakout candidate this upcoming year. Probably increasing that sack total is where he's going to start to attack a little bit more, making himself a threat coming off the edge. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with featured artist IW and his latest release, Mr. Hunter. You can find him on Spotify. Just search IW Mr. Hunter. He's also available on iTunes as well, and follow on Instagram at Do You Music. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app. The Academy of Broadcast Media, located in Hackensack, New Jersey. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. One of the major reasons for optimism for Baltimore is Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, makes it an 11-on-11 game. He has the leadership skills that you want to see from that position. He's able to do things on both ends of offense as a passer and also as a runner, and he makes everyone around him better. As long as he's out there on the field, the Ravens will always have a chance. You also look at the defensive improvements they made for a reason to have even more optimism, especially within the front seven. You talked about the defensive line. You look at the rookies that they drafted at linebacker, and the secondary is the best in the NFL as a collective group. So the Ravens' defensive improvements definitely make you optimistic, as well as the fact that they have the best special teams unit in the NFL. Both coverage units, return game is going to get better with the addition of J.K. Dobbins, and also those rookie receivers, Duvernay and Prochet. But Justin Tucker, being a kicker, all you have to do is cross the 50, and he's within range. So the Ravens are strong in all three facets of football, which is why you have a lot of optimism about them heading into the season. One of the causes for concern would be if that Marshall Yanda retirement proves to be a bigger loss than expected. When you look at the guard options that they have, if none of those guys are able to step up and seize that opportunity, it could be a problem for that Ravens front line. And defensively, if they can't get sacks, even though they're a very good defense overall, they still have some issues in getting to the quarterback. That has to change. They have to get to where they are able to sack the quarterback. That, to me, would give me a cause for concern if you're looking at Baltimore. The road to the Super Bowl for the Ravens goes as follows. Number one, that passing game makes an even bigger jump this season with the additions of those young receivers and the expected growth of both Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin. If they make that jump, they could be dangerous. And if they're able to sack the quarterback, we just spoke about that, this defense will go from very good to great. And if that offensive line doesn't miss a beat, they're able to replace Marshall Yanda and be competitive there up front along that offensive line, helping that offense go. The Ravens can find themselves pushing through the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl. I have the Ravens finishing first in the AFC North. This is the most complete team in the division. Quarterback play is there, the running game, the offensive line, the young receiving core growing with their young quarterback. Defensively, they're one of the best in the NFL and have great special teams. So to me, it's a no-brainer that Baltimore will once again finish atop the AFC North for the third straight season. So that's it for this edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts, and don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. That's where you can find our NFL All 32 podcast. And keep it locked here on Football Game Plan's YouTube channel, where you can find more Ravens-related video content like our All 22 show, where we go inside the film room to break down the Ravens more in depth, as well as our fantasy football starting lineup, talking about the Ravens fantasy football options that you want to have on your team, and our Football Game Plan best bets, where we will take a look at some of the key prop bets for the Ravens heading into the season.
It's D-U-E, you tell I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.